Do you think Turkey today is an ally of the United States? We have no friends but the mountains. That's an old Kurdish proverb that sums up pretty much their current predicament. With U.S. special forces largely removed from northeastern Syria, this stateless Mideastern people find themselves in a familiar place. They're the victims of changing priorities. Hello and welcome to GZERO World. I'm Ian Bremmer, you knew that, and today I'll explain why America's ditching of its strongest ally in the fight against ISIS shouldn't come as a surprise, especially to the Kurds, and why the effects of that decision are now rippling across the globe. And to help me dig in, I've enlisted one of the world's leading experts on Syria. Faisal Itani of the Atlantic Council joins us. I've also got your puppet regime.
And so it is my great pleasure to celebrate this great American holiday with Mike Flynn.
But first, a word from the folks who help us keep the lights on.
Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand. It's their neighborhood. They have to maintain it. They have to take care of it.
Do yourself a favor, a small favor. Google the phrase Trump controversies. Wikipedia has 24 pages of content, alphabetized, but none of it has inspired the sort of bipartisan condemnation that was brought on by Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of northeastern Syria. House members made that clear in a rare bipartisan rebuke. After 4 years of warfare, Kurdish fighters, supported by U.S. special forces, helped to defeat much of ISIS. In fact, Kurdish intelligence was critical to a high-risk U.S. special forces raid that resulted in the death of ISIS's infamous leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, late last month.
Kurdish officials tell us that they had a mole very close to Baghdadi, someone who would visit him, was trusted by him, and was passing information back to the Kurds right until the very end, and that they were passing that information along to the United States.
Though America's adversary, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, had won back much of his country, success against ISIS was among the rare triumphs for the U.S. Kurdish alliance. The Kurds lost more than 11,000 soldiers in that fighting. But the partnership was clear. America got an ally willing to do the heavy lifting against ISIS, and the Kurds got the implicit backing of the U.S. military, which kept their rivals at bay. But what about afterwards? With virtually all of ISIS territory regained and thousands of ISIS fighters languishing in jails, President Trump wasn't exactly quiet about America's plans.
We look forward to giving our brave warriors in Syria a warm welcome back home.
Trump tried to withdraw last year, but then Defense Secretary Jim Mattis pushed back hard. Of course, Mattis is gone now, and with impeachment proceedings bearing down and growing pressure from Turkey, Trump made his move. Why does it matter? Well, let's start with Turkey. For the Turks, U.S. leaving was a green light to invade Syria. Ankara has long been worried that their biggest enemy in Syria, the Kurds, would use the territory they've captured to establish an independent Kurdish state, which would then be a source of inspiration and support for Kurdish separatists inside Turkey. Only a U.S. presence in the region has kept Turkey away this long, and so, in the American absence, all bets were off. Next up, Russia. Now remember, Turkey is a NATO ally still. That's the same NATO that was created to contain Soviet aggression. And the reason I bring it up is that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been hanging out in Russia a lot these days, and he and Vladimir Putin are brokering deals of their own. A drawdown of U.S. forces gives Moscow more influence across the region. Third on the list, ISIS. Thousands of ISIS fighters were locked away in Kurdish jails, but as their Kurdish jailers left to fight Turkey and its militias, many of those jailed ISIS fighters are feared to have rejoined the ISIS ranks, breathing new life into the jihadi group. Lastly, America's allies. The decision to ditch the Kurds doesn't inspire confidence with America's partners, nor does it help convince future U.S. allies that the Americans are to be counted on. Now, for context, the Kurds themselves also know this dance pretty well. Even if they hadn't been listening to Trump's calls for withdrawals, their own history is littered with partners who've had a hard time with commitment. Remember, this is a group that's been searching for a country of their own for almost a century now, promised to them with the end of the Ottoman Empire. But aside from a brief 2-year stretch back in 1922, which the Brits helped quickly put an end to, hasn't happened. The Kurds remain the region's 4th largest ethnic group, predominantly split among 5 countries, all of whom are worried that they might mount a separatist challenge within their own borders, and so the Kurds have been left behind, notably by the Americans, almost ever since. Faisal Itani, for the Atlantic Council, Senior Fellow, Middle East Stuff. Good to see you.
You too,
So,
Ian.
on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being an awesome decision, 1 being really, really stupid, what we've seen the Trump administration do in Syria over the past weeks has been
I'm going to cop out and say a 5.
a 5.
Yeah.
Now, you realize that there's probably no one that has been opining on this issue on television that would call it a 5. So
I do recognize that. Yeah.
why are you who are you trying not to offend?
To be honest with you, I think I'm caught between calling it a disaster because of the way it's being done and some of the motives behind it. But also, I'm placing it in the geopolitical context, which is that we trapped ourselves in Syria a few years back, and that's been leading us to this point since about, I think, the middle of the conflict, 4 or 5 years ago. And so I didn't, under this presidency, didn't see it going anywhere good. And I kind of saw us stuck between, do we dig in further and try to iron out these contradictions in our policy? Or actually, do we just say, wait a minute, these contradictions are not addressable at a cost that we can accept? And so should we start planning a way out? I think we should have started doing that years ago.
So the contradictions are what?
The main one that stares us in the face, really, is the Turkey problem. The entire base of...
They're an ally, and yet they're attacking our friends on the ground.
Yes, in a nutshell. And our friends on the ground in the PYD...
Explain the PYD for people watching.
The political aspect of the main Kurdish faction that is running the war against ISIS, essentially on the ground, as our infantry, so to speak. So there's the PYD, the YPGs, the armed branch, but I'll use it interchangeably just to make life easier. They are essentially the entire foundation of our Syria policy. They're our partner on the ground, they're the force against ISIS, and they are supposed to be the local ally we have to dig in and build a long-term presence in that country and then project power from there. And of course, to their north is Turkey. It's been fighting their mother organization, the PKK in Turkey, for 40 years. And that was something we just kind of tried to skirt around and tried to hope that the Turks wouldn't notice or that we'd get them to calm down and lay off. I just saw that as something we overpromised the Kurds, that we would protect them from that. And matters came to a head. And we had to make a decision. And not only did we have to make this really painful decision, there is a president in the White House who instinctively and temperamentally doesn't want to have anything to do with it anyway. So I always feared that the second it was going to be challenged, it was going to fall apart like a house of cards.
Well, he's been challenged on this, of course, several times now. I mean, It's not the first time he's tried to pull out of Syria.
True.
Right. The numbers we're talking about are fairly small.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about 1,000 troops. So, I mean, to the extent that there's a contradiction, it's not a very big contradiction, right?
The problem is that whether you have 1,000 troops or 10 troops in northern Syria, once the Turkish military starts coming in, either you got to pull them out of the way or you got to protect them, right? There's the only two options.
Did you believe that the Turks were ever going to make that invasion into Syrian territory if the Americans had kept the troops there?
Yes, eventually. I did believe that. I didn't expect it at the time it happened.
Yeah.
I didn't predict it. I wouldn't say that. But I thought it was the inevitable outcome.
Risking the deaths, the lives of American soldiers, NATO allies across the border.
I think they made a calculated bluff. And they calculated that if they did it, we would not stand up and fight. I think that was the correct calculation, frankly. Unless they had a president on the other side who was very clearly telling them that's a red line and it won't stand. And they didn't have that, right? We had President Trump.
So let's talk about the Kurds for a second. The Turks say the PYD are terrorists. Lindsey Graham says they're heroes that are fighting terrorism. Who's closer to the truth?
For me, it doesn't actually matter that much. I mean, I have no interest in labeling the PYD a terrorist group because as far as American interests are concerned, we're fine with the PYD. They've helped us, we've helped them. On the other hand, if I was the Turkish government, of course they're going to see it through that prism, right? Because they see the PYD and the guys they've been fighting for 40 years in Turkey, which is kind of Kurdish separatist movement, the PKK.
Inside Turkey, yeah.
That's the same thing. And at the leadership level, they are the same, at the very kind of strategic level, command. So I wouldn't label them that insofar as American interests are concerned, but I see no way to make Turkey change their mind about it, if that makes sense.
How much does it matter in the region, on the ground, that the Americans have decided to cut bait and leave these guys high and dry?
It matters a lot, I think.
Because?
Because it's basically you're screaming out to the world that you can't trust the United States. That their partnership is not worth anything, that you can make sacrifices and they will pull out and leave you high and dry. From that perspective, of course, I cannot defend what they've done to the Kurds. That's obscene, that they played their allies that way. Things could have been handled more responsibly from the start, but they weren't. And we kind of plowed into this position. And one of the things you mentioned was that this isn't the first time President Trump wanted to get out of Syria. One of the problems is that he said really literally that he wanted to get out last December, right? And then we had these 10 months to try to decide what are we going to do about the fact that that's what the president essentially wants to do. What if we run into an obstacle in our policy? How are we going to sell the president on it? I think our national security bureaucracy spent the last few months just trying to kind of Trojan horse a more ambitious Syria policy and hoping the president kind of
would notice.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's a crude way of putting it, but wouldn't notice, would be distracted, would think it was something it wasn't. That's I think, part of the error. And I think that's actually also a betrayal of the Kurdish allies.
Are the Turks honestly winners here?
To describe him as a winner is, I think, a bit too positive. I think he had a hierarchy of needs in Syria. Some things that really had to get done, and some things that would be nice.
Yeah.
Luxury goals, so to speak. Luxury goal would have been to have a robust sphere of Turkish influence in Syria.
Not going to happen.
I don't think so, no. Because he's already been outmaneuvered by the regime, by the Russians, by everybody. The number one priority was, and I know I'm going to say it, even though he didn't say it in so many words, to get the U.S. military out of there and break that alliance between the U.S. military and the Kurds. I think that was the worst nightmare scenario for the Turks. And they accomplished that. Even if we keep a few troops here and there, that trust and alliance, that's broken.
Do you think Turkey today is an ally of the United States?
Oh, I have to think about this, actually. I don't have a quick and clever answer for you.
I mean, they are definitionally in terms of NATO, but are they actually functionally an ally of the U.S.?
No, I don't think so. But I think we have also a part to blame in that, not just the Turks, to be honest.
And the blame of the United States is what?
We violated the core national security interest of theirs and expected them to eventually come to terms with it and told ourselves that they would. And they didn't. Now, does that make Erdogan a good ally or not? No. Does that make this invasion defensible? No. It's a bunch of mercenaries and extremists who are
So some core national interests are, in a sense, too far apart for the alliance to functionally operate.
I think this was just a bridge too far for the relationship.
Faisal Itani, good to see you.
Thank you.
So that was the big picture view of what's happening in northeast Syria today. But we can go small. We can do that for you. The Kurds, of course, aren't just political pawns in some geopolitical chess match. They're real people with hopes and dreams of their own. Case in point, recently some folks here at GZERO met up with Haki Akdeniz. Really nice guy, Kurdish immigrant in New York City, went from living on the streets to carving out his own slice of the pie. Roll tape.
In a city full of extraordinary stories, we've got a truly remarkable one for you today. I'm here with the founder and owner of Champion Pizza, the 2010 World Pizza Champion, the inventor of the flaming dough of death. Mr. Haki Akdeniz, thank you so much for giving us your time.
No, thank you, having me.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got to New York.
Yeah. I'm a Kurdish from Turkey. I came over here with a big dream. But when I got here, it was can I say it's easy? Of course it was not easy. I used to go like the last stop, I come all the way to the last stop.
So you were living on the train?
Yeah, on train, yeah, nighttime. Daytime, just out, walking around, And, I had my hat and train station, just, asking people like, a cup of change, just to eat.
Living on the trains, living in a shelter. How did you go from that to being the pizza king of New York City?
I work so hard, and I believe in my heart, I believe in God, and I said, listen, if you believe it, you're gonna achieve it.
When did you leave Turkey? You left in what, in the 90s?
1997, yeah.
And why did you leave?
That time, there were like too much killer in my hometown, Silvan. Every day people dying in the street. I'm talking every day people were dying in the street. Thank you. How are you?
Obviously, the Kurds have been in the news a lot lately. When you heard that the U.S. was leaving Syria and that the Kurds there would be sort of left on their own, what went through your head when you heard that news about Syria?
Well, so many people dying, man.
Yeah.
Why people dying for what?
Yeah.
For money?
Yeah.
The day you're born, if you don't mind, okay, do you know you're gonna be Christian or Muslim, Catholic or Jewish? Do you know anything about it?
No.
Do you know what color? Do you know what color skin you're gonna be? We don't know nothing. I think, just be human, man. Just be humanitarian, love everybody.
You're a Kurd from Turkey. Do you feel a kinship with Kurds in Syria and in Iran, or is it like, how close do you feel to Kurds who are in other countries besides Turkey?
Kurds are Kurds like Iran, Iraq. People like they DM me, like, hey, we are so proud of you. We're from Iraq, okay? We Kurdish from Iraq. I get Kurdish from Russia. Russia. They text me, where you Kurdish from, we live in Russia. Oh, what? So there's a lot of Kurds I get Russia too. So for me, I don't care Kurds, that we all we are all human, man.
Well, one of the things that people know you best for is the work that you do for the homeless in New York.
You have to be through that, to understand, what you feel it. And because I'm doing that, because I was there, I was one of them.
So what's next? What do you do next? You're already the pizza king of New York. You've already won the pizza championship. What's next for Haki Athletes?
I just want to be humble. I'm not popular, man. I'm just pizza guy.
Just the pizza guy.
Wasn't that crazy that, live on the street and become like the highest paid pizza man right now?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's a blast.
And now, it's time for Puppet Regime. When it comes to Turkish President Erdogan's military invasion of Kurdish territory, Trump has essentially given him a free pass. But that's not the only Turkey Trump's pardoning this autumn. I'm thinking puppets.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, in accordance with a great tradition among many, many presidents before me, all of whom I have accomplished so much more than, honestly, I have. And if you people weren't so dishonest, you would probably. But anyway, and so it is my great, great pleasure to celebrate this great American holiday with Mike Flynn. What a beautiful surprise. What just beautiful. You are a true patriot, very unfairly treated. And so you, since you're here, you are pardoned. Mike Flynn, ladies and gentlemen, pardoned.
What was that? Did he
That
just...
celebrates our beautiful flag and lawyers. Rudy, beautiful. Look, you two, since you're here, you're pardoned. Well done, beautiful. Rudy Giuliani, ladies and gentlemen, pardoned.
That's our show this week. Come back next week. Don't miss it. Because if you miss it, it's like you haven't even seen it, right? You want consistency in your viewing pleasure. But in the meantime, if you like what you've seen, check us out at GZEROmedia.com.